One of the saddest things happening right now is that people are becoming strangers to their own identity. Welcome, everyone, to Letters from Dad and his daughter in law. In this episode, we want to talk about just finding yourself, right? Standing up for who you are, your faith, your culture, as well as your family. So, to kick this off, I'm going to pass this over to my father in law and let him start off with, what part of your identity do you feel good about?
Okay, this is a very good question to begin with, and I think I could say a lot of things about my identity, but a couple of main things that I can talk about is culture, the faith, and the family. Not necessarily in that order, but these three things are very important. So at a high level, I would just say that you know those shape human beings, and that has shaped me also.
Yeah, and given that you've migrated, right, to the
Hmm.
US,
Hmm.
have you felt like you had to compromise with your faith, your culture, right, and even with family values in the past? And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so family values might have to you might have to compromise with even in your home country. Sometimes, you know, different families are not the same. Like even families of siblings are not the same, and cousins and distant people are not the same. But with regards to a culture and with regards to faith, yeah, definitely, because we embarked into a totally new culture. And faith is different because people of same faith live in different countries,
Yeah.
right? So I'm coming to that a little bit later. But culture, definitely, right? So culture has a connection with the environment that you grew up in, the weather, the people, the geography, and all those things. So yes, certainly, culture was very different. I wouldn't say it was a cultural shock because if you had seen movies, if you had read books and stuff like that, you had some idea. But as they say, seeing is believing. So once we came to this country, we saw the different, things that were very different from how we grew up in terms of culture. I'm just restricting myself to culture, right? And yes, so it was not easy. And of course, over the years, with every culture, with every segment of people coming from different parts of the world, things have become easier and easier because when we came, say, I'm not one of the oldest people who came to this land, but I came with my family around 30 plus years back. So we have seen so much change. People who came in 40 and 50 have seen like, unimaginable change, right? Even people who came 20 years back. So why I say this is that initially you would not think about culture because you would come to a land where you would see things are totally different. You are not going to see a program where you'd see songs from your culture. You would not see activities, programs, dramas, movies that you are used to seeing when you are in your home country. So you accept that and come to a new country. But the advantage now is that if people have been coming here for the last 5 to 10 years, I mean, those who were coming here for the 5, 10 years, or 15, 20 years, it's much much different because now, as you see, you live with us
Yeah.
nowadays also, that we go to so many places, so many
A
parties. you
lot.
you yourself also go to many places, right? So these are totally programs which are from our culture. Absolutely, when you are inside that auditorium or that hall or whatever, you don't even think that that is in New Jersey or New York or somewhere else. You feel it's part of Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So cultural thing, adjustment and getting used to is much easier now than what it used to be before. So yes, it was very different. There was a getting used to it. I mean, what is associated with this is your mental feeling. A lot of people, including myself, I think we used to get very homesick.
Yeah. That's true.
You would not see things that you are used to seeing. You would not hear music that you're used to hearing. You would not sometimes even see food that you are used to eating, right? Even cooking, my wife and other, ladies would, attest to that, that nowadays, everything is either people can cook or they can buy ready-made food. But when we came, it was not like that. So yeah, a lot of adjustment on culture. So let me stop now and then come to faith later.
Okay. In terms of like family, right? I think, what do you feel about family? Do you think, family values shapes who you've become now? And, what is it that you've carried forward?
Yeah, so that's very easy to do because family value, in my opinion, it can change from person to person. Family values do not have to change. I know there is an effect of the place you live in, but family effect per se does not have to change. And also because the reason I mentioned before, because now it's much easier to do things that you are used to doing in your home country. So if I raise my kids in some way, it's much easier now than when it used to be before. My kids are all grown up, but those who are going to raise now, they can find it much easier from that perspective, that you can carry on your values and morals and whatnot. But before, it was like, it was very, very difficult because it was so different. That's why, right? So now I think it's much easier. But yes,
Yeah. So family is the first teacher,
correct.
You really start to build that foundation from home, right? Like you're becoming, there's a lot of things that you learn and who you become, right? I think people that you're surrounded by, your family teaches you a lot of values,
Yep.
right? Things that you carry forward. And sometimes people choose to carry it forward, and then sometimes people don't choose to carry it
You
forward,
mean
right?
you mean future generations?
Yes, exactly. The
Correct.
future generations,
Correct.
even like us, right?
Yeah.
As we're
Yeah.
at home, there are certain things that we take upon, but then there are certain things that we just leave behind.
Right.
But yeah, and then in terms of faith, do you want to talk a little bit about, because, we do celebrate Eid, so maybe you can talk about what Eid is, and then,
Yeah.
if there are any changes in how you celebrate.
Yeah, so in Muslim faith, we have two main festivals, both of which comes after a very important part in our Islamic calendar. The first one is Eid al-Fitr, which comes right after Ramadan. I think most of the world knows about it. And the second one, I think most people outside of the religion might not know about it. It's called Eid al-Adha, the Eid of sacrifice. And that has got direct bearing with Hajj. Without going too much into the details, these are our main two celebrations where we enjoy with friends, family, within the perspective of our religious norms and boundaries and culture stuff and all that. But yeah, here we have been doing that for many years now. But as I kept on saying for the last few minutes, that for all of these things, whether doing your faith related activities or doing your cultural stuff or family, carrying on the family values and whatever, these were not initially that easy. But I would definitely say that now, talking about faith, if someone wants to carry on, say, their faith-based activities, say daily and whatever it is mandated, it is not as difficult as it used to be before. I'll give you one example, that in our faith we have to pray 5 times a day, right? And where we live, New York, New Jersey area is one of the places where winter and even fall gets quite cold. And winter, sometimes it's so cold that you cannot even go outside. Sometime when we started praying, because in our faith we have to pray on time, so we had to go out on a snowy day, and people will be like, think this guy's weird, but I had to do, because there was not a conference room or a small room to pray. So without going into further details, nowadays it's much easier because there are more people who know about it. There are many companies. Last few years that I have worked, I could do my prayers in my workplace. There would always be a room, some place, a small area here, a small area there. So it was much easier over the years to pursue your faith. What I'm talking about, my faith, I'm sure it's true for other faiths also. One of the things that I want to ask is about faith, because I know practicing any faith is difficult anywhere in this world, particularly for migrants, because their parents were used to doing it in a certain way, and even however much the parents want their kids to do, sometimes for the kids the reality is different. So you want to touch a little bit about how you grew up with faith, and what are the challenges you faced, and how you encountered them, how you stood for yourself with regards to faith.
Yeah, great question. So growing up, I grew up in a Muslim household. So, definitely prayer was something that I've always seen my parents do. And it's something that, I was definitely also intrigued by. Growing up, my parents did put me with an Arabic teacher, who taught me how to read the Quran. And so there's a lot of things that I've learned growing up, and having that surrounding and that community where there were other children who were Muslim, right? So being surrounded by Muslim children, gave me that ability to still stand up for my faith. And oftentimes at school, there are so many students that are celebrating, or so many different students that are believing in different faiths, right? Different religions. And coming from different religious backgrounds, sometimes you feel the need to stand up for your own faith, right? So if sometimes there will be kids making fun of Islam is like this and that, right? And just having that thought where you just feel like you need to stand up for your faith and tell them that the type of mindset that they have towards that religion is not true.
Right.
So oftentimes I felt the need to stand up for my faith, and it's something I felt proud of personally, right? I think that oftentimes we might want the approval from others, but you have to keep in mind that approval fades. But if you ever end up compromising your own faith, that will stick to you.
Yeah.
And that's something you have to live with. So personally, I, was lucky enough to be surrounded by, or at least fortunate enough to be surrounded by other Muslim children
Yeah.
who were also celebrating Eid, for example, right? And it was such a happy community. We would get up, we would dress
Yeah,
up, we would
yeah.
go to eat. And a lot of my
Be
friends
it
were
New
Muslim.
York.
Yeah, exactly. In New York. But overall, it was a good time. And I think I'm so glad that I did, because these are certain values. These are things that I will pass on
Yeah.
to the future, right? The future generation. And it's definitely important to just stand up for yourself and
I'm
your
tempted
faith.
to ask a question. Sorry for interrupting you. Which is when you were saying that you've had, friends and, kids who were like you, who were, practicing, at least celebrating the events and stuff like that. And it felt, because as I said, more and more you see, people from different background and from our faith and our culture also. But I would say, because I raised kids also your age, right? And older. And I did not always see that. So you tell me, what you saw. Let me just finish first, which is I saw that is the more difficult part. I saw people from our faith not practicing, yet our kids are practicing, which makes it very hard for them, which made it very hard for them. I won't go into further details. You understand where
Yeah,
I'm
of
coming
course.
from, right?
Yeah.
So did you encounter like that? It was not like all Muslim kids were doing things that you were doing?
Yeah, no, that's also very true. There were a lot of Muslim kids that weren't doing a lot of things that I was doing, and one part of it was the modesty aspect, right? Like dressing up a certain way, or just being more covered. Like there was certain things that I didn't always see other kids doing growing up. But to me, it was more about what I was taught, right? And just sticking to that. And for me, I was fortunate enough to know that even if you're surrounded by others who might be from the same background,
yeah.
but, they might portray themselves in a different way, right? With no judgment, but
Correct.
absolutely still being able to being friends with them. Well, still being friends
Yeah.
with them, but still being who I am. And I think that's really, instead of seeing, oh, like this person is, doing this, maybe I should change myself. Instead, I looked at it from a different lens. It was, what can I do to help them see something differently, right? Like, how can I help them become a little bit more aligned to how I am? But that was, growing up, I think we're a lot younger, and it can definitely be challenging when you see other people from the same like religious
Community,
background,
yeah.
or the same community
Right.
be different. Like,
Right.
but again, it's something that you take on from a younger age, and
Yeah.
you decide whether or not you want to stick to what
Yeah,
you.
that is life. Yeah.
So-
Why I asked this question, I'm so interested in this, is because, my kids used to ask sometimes that, similar families, similar background, similar whatever, actually very similar to us,
Right.
they are not, practicing this thing. So what this does is not only discourages the kids who are practicing, but it also gives a different understanding of our faith to people who don't even understand. So they would point out to, Alina, why are you doing this? You guys, your parents might be too strict. The other girl or other boy is not doing this.
Yeah.
So that is something that, has happened, will happen.
Right.
We'll have to live with it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing growing up, my parents, they never like forced me to accept, like they never forced me to, pray. It wasn't like, they always encouraged me to do it, which was, this is the right thing to do. This is what you should be doing. And so I felt there were a lot of families, or at least there was a kid that I used to mentor who did mention to me that her parents used to force her to wear the hijab. And then when she'd come to school, she would take it off. Right. So to her, it was living two different identities.
yeah.
She, told her parents that it's something that she didn't want to do, but it was forced upon her. So I think sometimes there's that beauty of accepting things at your own pace, not being forced. Parents are teaching you, but sometimes the way that it's communicated to you might come off a little bit harsh, and kids then will end up going a different route.
Parents are different,
Yeah.
families will be different, kids will be different. You are saying that your family was like this, that family was. when a family has 3 or 4 kids, whatever, you will see that maybe one of two of them are kind of rebels,
Yeah.
right? The others are doing whatever they're told, and
Right.
this is true not only for faith but also for, say, maintaining your culture,
Yeah.
maintaining even modesty,
Yeah.
irrespective of faith.
Right.
Everyone wants modest people, not only modest in attire, but
Right.
also not using. One thing that hurts me a lot is bad language, right?
Yeah.
So wherever you are, wherever you're coming from, but these sometimes become such norms that people don't even
Right.
bother any longer. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It just becomes like a way of life.
So,
And
you said in the beginning that it starts from the family. That's so very true.
yeah.
And then the family should let ease a little bit and say, okay, you are growing up. This is what we think is the right thing to do. And then the world is out there, and you most of the time it will work out. And
Right.
God forbid if it does not work out,
Yeah, of
what
course.
are you gonna do?
Yeah, sometimes you're choosing your own journey,
Mm,
right? And you're not always going to be at home. Like I mentioned, right? When you're at home and everything that you're seeing, the type of way that you're living, it helps you build that foundation for life, but it doesn't shape who you are always, right? Because you'll go to school, you have college, you'll have classes, you'll hang out with your friends. And there's so many other things you'll see, right? There's so many other things you'll be surrounded by. So you can't always expect that you'll always carry forward what you're seeing at home.
Correct.
Sometimes you'll change yourself and you can have that growth. And that growth can sometimes be in a more positive way or in a more negative way based on how people see it. But I think it's important that you stand true to your own self, to your own identity. I remember a story. I had a group of friends and, we were all at a hangout and this one guy that I know listens to Bollywood songs was just like, oh no, like I don't listen to Bollywood songs. Like that's not my thing. And in my head, I'm like, I know you listen to Bollywood songs, but just to feel like he can fit in,
Blend in.
and blend in. Sometimes people will choose to do that, but I think it's important to stand up for yourself. You'll be happier that way. You'll be more content. You're who you are. You're showing people who you are. Because how long can you really carry that false picture of yourself with others or even in life, right? And is it even worth it at that point?
And being a parent for many years and now a grandparent, as you know, I want to keep on harping the same thing that family is the first place where you learn things, right?
Yep.
Whether it's your alphabet or whether it's your nursery rhymes or whatever be it, right? So I'm all for parents giving their moral values, their cultural norms, and their whatever. Even sometimes family to family varies, right? So they give them. But like you were saying before, the boundary, I think, it should be a kind of clear to a family that you don't make it too strict, because then there comes the option of or the possibility of a revolt or a rebel, which otherwise might not have had. But I also don't believe on the opposite idea that some people have, that let them learn, let them find out. Yeah, they will find out, but you have to give the basic stuff first. I never imposed upon my kids to study this or study that. But where we grew up, it was like that, right?
Yeah.
Your parents would tell you.
That brings me into my next question. What's the most important lesson that your family taught you growing up?
Yeah, I think several. But again, this is nothing specific to my family. But some of the things you touched upon. One of the thing is like honesty. Right? There was a saying called honesty is the best policy. Now people say honesty is not the best policy. But, honesty, true honesty, I don't know if that exists any longer. And then a lot of things comes from faith, because no faith teaches you to do anything wrong, right? If you are in your faith, and that's different from mine, that's all right. But your faith will not usually tell you to hurt me. Neither will my faith tell you to tell me to hurt someone else, right? So those are things. And again, I think modesty was very important. Sometimes people from our faith particularly think that modesty is only about girls and women, but guys can also and should be also modest. Modesty is not only in your appearance. Modesty is in the way you look, the way you talk, the way you behave, the way you correspond. I mean, maybe it looks like I'm being very strict, but yes, modesty is very important. It's precious. It's priceless. Right? Nowadays, I don't know how much your generation values that. Maybe you can touch upon it a little bit. But I would say modesty and honesty, hard work. And the other things are very similar to the values here.
I love that you said that, about like it's not just about women, it's not just about
Mm.
females, like, being modest
Yeah.
or even in just the way you're dressing, but it does play a role in other areas of
Mm.
life. Just touching up on this a little bit, I definitely agree with that saying. And I think it's something that workplace also values, right?
Mm-hmm.
So going a little bit back into like the corporate world, for example, which where do you work where people don't want to see
Yeah.
you being honest
Yeah.
or working hard
Yeah.
or being modest with
Yeah.
yourself
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
workplace, right? And even let's even talking about like attire, for example,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
There are certain attires that you have to present yourself in at a workplace, right? It's more professional. You have
Mm-hmm.
to show yourself as
Yeah.
being more put together.
You cannot just wear anything and
No,
everything.
exactly.
You
You
cannot.
can't.
Right.
And so I think that it's something that's still taught now, and that a lot of people still value and carry forward. Again, like I can't speak upon like everyone, but I think that lesson is something that would be very valuable to the future generation as well. Carrying forward that you should be more modest about the way
Mm.
you present yourself with the things that you do. Also, in terms of like being more honest with your work ethics,
Yeah.
right? With
Yeah.
just how
Yeah.
you are with people, how you're treating others, with everything in
Can I touch a
general.
little bit on that also? So, see, I mean, I'm not saying that, every time being honest will work for you. It will hurt you. It does hurt people.
Right.
It is sometimes not the right thing to do in a common sense, but it's a good thing to do, right?
It
I don't
is.
know how much people value good
Yes.
nowadays. So my point was that, we need to, and sometimes when I say that modesty, when I say faith, when I say this and that, this all might seem that I'm saying because I'm coming from an Eastern culture, I'm a practicing person. I would say I wanted to say this. That's why I kind of interrupted you to say that even in this culture, I've learned things that I did not learn at my home in my home culture. There are many positives that I see here that people in general respect people.
Yeah.
I don't always see that in other places, right? People respect people. I'm not talking about exceptions, right? And then people value people. People do not demean people. I'm not saying about exceptions. Exceptions are always there. But so these are things that I've learned here also. And I don't want to make it too long. Even for faith part, you would think that, oh, I left my faith in my home country. No, I have learned many things here
Yeah.
because I don't take my faith granted here. You have to, I mean, otherwise it would seem that, we knew everything, we are holier than thou, right? We know everything, all that we learned is right and everything is wrong.
If you've discovered the person who you are, you should always stay true to yourself, right? It's important that you're carrying
Mm.
forward all
Mm.
these values that you've been taught, everything that you also believe in. It's important to not lose track of yourself just because you want the approval of others or you want to fit into a society. Yes,
Or just because you're different.
right, exactly. You can always grow. You
Yes.
can always become a better version of yourself. No
Yes.
one's stopping you from that. But just being embarrassed of who you are can sometimes make you compromise something that you'll never see again, a version of
Mm.
you that you may lose in the future.
Mm.
So stay true to yourself.
As I was saying earlier also that sometimes honesty, staying true to yourself, and sometimes it might even seem that you are alone. You are the only one who has that opinion. Everyone else has different opinion. It depends on many other factors, right? Which part of the country you are in. If it's a big city, people know people from different backgrounds. If it's inner city or a smaller place somewhere, people have not been exposed. People are resistant to seeing other people. So I would say that in general it helps, but one always needs to be careful. I mean, just to do my stuff, I don't want to be in trouble. I don't want anyone else to be in trouble. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of
So
course.
I am all for being who I am, but the rest, you would know, how the world is today.
What role does faith play in a
Mm.
world full of distractions?
I think it's a topic for one whole podcast, right? So I'm not qualified enough to give a very good response, but I'll just say from my experience, and I think that's what you're looking for. So, although I come from a very specific faith, I think all faiths are the same in this sense, like I was saying earlier. no faith tells you to do anything wrong. No faith tells you to go and hurt someone else. No faith tells you to foul mouth, right? No faith tells you to write bad things on social media. Is there any faith that tells you to do that?
No.
We do that, and when we identify ourselves with a faith, then we are actually lowering or demeaning that faith. But the faith is not demeaned. We are the ones who are doing those things, if we are the ones who are doing those things, right? So my point being that, faith helps you in general to calm you down, right? But you have to be deep in faith. I cannot just, say that, oh, faith has, calmed me down, whatever. You have to be very much involved, and you have to really believe in whatever your faith is, right? But sometimes you will see that worldly solutions are not making you happy, right? You're very sad for some reason, job related, family related, so many other things that happen in our lives, right? So I think faith helps a lot, but there has to be a deep involvement in faith. It will just not happen just like this, right? So I think faith does faith does help, but we have to be very much involved in it, and we have to have faith in faith.
Yeah.
Okay, Alina, why don't we end today's podcast with me asking you a question? I know usually you're asking me a question so that I can answer from my experience, but as you know already, that I also respect and I understand that the opinion of the young people is very important. So between faith, culture, and family, and in God willing, you will also have future generations. And what would you emphasize? I'm not saying 1, 2, 3 or whatever. What would you emphasize in your future generations in general? What would you like to see?
I want the future generation to always remember, or at least what I want to see is that whether it comes to faith, whether it comes to culture, whether it comes to family, I want these values to be passed along, right? It's not just coming from me, it's coming from the previous generations, and it'll be passed on to the future generations. You need to stand up for yourself, not just what your family has taught you, but what you truly believe in as well. And take that on, like bring that to the future.
I just want to add one thing, Alina. It's not a question from my side, and we can end this podcast with that. Is that we are always talking about our faith, our culture, our belief,
Yeah.
our family. Let us also have our minds open so that we accept that the next person is different.
Yes.
That's very, very important. Our generation doesn't do a good job. I hope your generation does a good job on that. We have to accept people for who they are, then they will accept us for who we are.
I think the more we accept that someone else can be different, the more true we can be to ourselves, and also accept that others can be the way that they are. But yeah, that does bring us to the end of our podcast. If you guys like this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate all the support that we get. But till next time.
Thank you.